Yo guys, welcome back. My name is Nathan and today I'm going to be redrafting the top 15 of the 2019 NHL Draft. Now a lot has changed since 2019 and I've gotten a lot of people over the past few months asking me to do this and to redraft for 2019 since it was really the first draft that we fully covered on this channel, and there's been a lot that's changed. A lot of players have gone up and down in my opinion, and especially for the top 5, almost everything is different. But how do I view the 2019 draft 3 years later? What has changed and which players have dropped and risen since then? Watch till the end for the complete top 15 rankings and all of the draft talk, and make sure you hit that subscribe button if you are new. 50% of the people that are watching are not subscribed. If you like hockey, this channel is the place to be. Now I want to make this known, although I might have teams on the side here, I do want to stress that this is just a top 15 player ranking from the 2019 draft. I'm not taking teams into account here, but this is how I would draft the top 15 of 2019 if it were held today. And a lot has changed since then, so we might as well get into it. And a great example of what has changed is the debate of the first overall pick. I don't think many people, including me, are going to be arguing Kakko for first overall anymore. I think really the big battle is between Moritz, Seider, and Jack Hughes. Some people might say Trevor Zegras, but I think it's between Jack Hughes and Moritz Seider for that first overall spot. And to me, it's a seriously interesting debate. Do you go for the speedy, young, number 1 center for the future, or do you go for the sturdy, dependable number 1 defenseman in the future? Personally, for me, it's a toss-up between these two guys. Both are absolutely elite, and I just might have a tie. But at the same time, if I do need to choose first overall and the first best player of the 2019 draft, I'm going to go with Moritz Seider. Going back to that debate of would you rather have a number 1 defenseman or a number 1 center, to me, I would rather have the number 1 defenseman, especially in Moritz Seider's case, a guy that has grown so much since his draft year. Back in his draft year, I had him 15th overall, and I still thought I was pretty high on him compared to some other people, but the two-way game has grown so much, the maturity has grown so much, and he should win the Calder Trophy by a landslide this season. But now going on to second overall and the second best player in the 2019 draft, of course, this spot belongs to Jack Hughes. Again, I think it's a toss-up between Seider and Hughes, but I think one big reason why I do lean Seider is just because of the health of Jack so far. Even though when he has been healthy, Hughes has been fantastic and has developed amazingly over the past couple of years, the health has been in question. Meanwhile, with Seider, that's not really the case. Still with Jack Hughes, though, the maturity, the strength, and the consistency has really improved over these past couple of years, and I have no doubt that he'll be a number 1 center for this New Jersey Devils team, and rightfully inside the top 2. But now we're going to go into the top 3. At number 3 and the third best player of the 2019 draft, I'm going to go with a guy just outside of the Hughes and Moritz Seider tier in Trevor Zegras. Now, you guys know, if you were watching the videos going back to the 2019 draft, you guys know that I love Trevor Zegras all the way back to his draft year, and it's still been the case, and even more so now. The authenticity, the excitement, the amount of entertainment you get with Trevor Zegras, watching him day in and day out, is fantastic, but he also backs it up with some fantastic results. His passing is elite, his skating is elite, his awareness is at such a high level. He'll be an elite player for a long time with the Ducks, and it's not really too surprising. I knew he was still at 9th overall, and he continues to show exactly why. Now, the scary thing is, after these top 3 spots, this is where the list starts to get extremely close, and honestly, I'll probably get a lot of disagreement with this range of the list because it kind of goes wide open at this point. But we're going to move on to the 4th overall spot and the 4th best player in the 2019 draft, and you know what? I'm just going to come out and say it. At number 4, I have Caufield. It is so refreshing to see Caufield officially back under Martin St. Louis. He's got in 6 games, 5 goals, 3 assists for 8 points, looking like a completely new player. And the Caufield I grew up to really love watching. Going back to his draft year, though, I think I had him 6th overall in my rankings, or probably 7th overall, around that range. And to me, the goal scoring ability, the quickness, the shiftiness is all at an elite level. The creativity is awesome too. I think under Martin St. Louis, he's going to unlock Caufield officially, and we will see him back and better than ever. To me, I still think Caufield is one of the best prospects of this draft, and I know a lot of people called him a bust after he was tormented by Dominic Ducharme, but I'm glad to see him officially produce producing and doing so great under another undersized legend. But now we're going to go on to number 5, finish out the top 5 of the 2019 redraft. And at number 5, I might be a little bit hasty here, but I'm going to go with Minnesota Wild prospect Matt Boldy. Now, although there is obviously some recency bias with this pick, at the same time, Matt Boldy has been playing at an elite level in every single league he's been in since he was drafted. Even though right after he was drafted, he had some struggles to start out with Boston College, he had got over those initial woes and was amazing there, then amazing in the AHL, and now in 16 NHL games, he has 16 points, has been on a key role in Minnesota's overall team, has gotten good power play minutes, already earned the trust of Dean Evison. I think he's a mainstay for the future in Minnesota, and that complete overall offensive game will be a treat to watch over these next 15 years. I think he's one of the best prospects of this draft and is getting the credit that he's deserving, and is getting the credit that he deserves from me as well. I started on him a little bit after that rough stint in the NCAA, but he's been proving me wrong in that aspect as well. But now I'm going to go on to number 6. This is actually one of the few players that is in the exact same spot I had them in back in 2019. At number 6, I have Dylan Cozens. He was 6th overall in my final 2019 rankings and stays in this spot. Honestly, to be around a half a point per game and to be on pace for 41 points this year under this Sabres team is pretty miraculous, and I feel like for Dylan Cozens, if he wasn't on the Sabres, we'd be talking about him as an even better player than he is now. Although there is still some things to shake out, the defensive play has not been great, I still think there's a lot of potential there with that playmaking ability and that size that Cozens is known for. Now, as I was saying, this range is the Wild West, and I think no better player exemplifies that at number 7 than with Bowen Byram. To me, Bowen Byram is kind of in the same situation as Jack Hughes, where the progression when he has played in the NHL has been good, but really it's become an unfortunate stint so far early in his career. He's suffered a couple of concussions and has had some really bad experiences with that, which is a shame because this year he's actually been playing pretty well with the Colorado Avalanche, again, when he is healthy. If Bowen Byram can get past those concussion issues and hopefully get to a healthier career, I think he'd be potentially in the top 6. I liked what I've seen from him so far this year with the overall offensive consistency, although last season was pretty rough from him. Again, if he can get healthy, I think he's a guy that could still go back into the top 5 when it's all said and done. But now I'm going to go on to number 8, and yeah, I'm just going to go out and say it. At number 8, I have Kakko. Yes, I know, he has not turned out to be the first overall pick quality player I saw from him. A lot of that, I think, is because the Rangers employed Tanner freaking Glass and Matt freaking Hunwick to develop their freaking young players, but I digress. Even though he hasn't been what I thought he would be, I still think a lot of the reason why has been that Rangers development program just being absolutely awful, and I still feel like Kakko will become a good NHL player, a great one and a consistent one. It's just a lot of things are holding him back, as well as even the health a little bit as he's on the IR right now. I still do love Kakko though, still one of my favorite players, but I'm just so sad to see how his career has panned out up to this point. Now going on to number 9, this is actually one of the most interesting players in my opinion in this 2019 redraft. As you guys know, in the top 3 we saw a couple of surprises, but the big surprise was of course Kirby Dach going 3rd overall, and coming in at number 9 I have the aforementioned Kirby Dach. Now here's the thing that I think is interesting. If we compare Cole Caufield to Kirby Dach has 20 points in 49 games. Cole Caufield, on a much worse team, even though the Blackhawks are pretty bad, has 16 points in 36 games played. Now, I saw so many people calling Cole Caufield a bust after the first couple months of the season, but I didn't hear anyone, not a soul, calling Kirby Dach a bust. And to me, there is a serious double standard here, because not only is Kirby Dach not producing as much as other players, let alone as much point per game as Cole Caufield, who is a bust apparently, his defensive numbers have been awful in the NHL this year and throughout his NHL career. And I feel like personally, if you're going to call one guy a bust, you might as well call another a bust. But at the same time, I still think Kirby Dach will be a good player and a consistent center for the Chicago Blackhawks. It will take some time. Neither of them are busts, but again, I think the double standard is something that does not get called out as much as it should. But now we're going to move on to the last player inside the top 10, a player who was drafted 15th overall by the Avalanche, who I actually had pretty high in my rankings, I believe 11th overall in my final rankings in 2019. He gets bumped up one spot, and I think will be a huge part of that Avalanche future in Alex Newhook. Now, I just said he might be a part of that future. We'll see if he's traded at the trade deadline, but I still think when it comes to Newhook, there is a lot to love here. That skating, that speed, that consistency offensively is key, and I feel like when it comes to Newhook, he'll be a player that if the Avs do keep, will be a perfect player player on that top 6 in the future, and in 5 years time I could see being a great potential first liner too. There's a lot to like though with Newhook, and I feel like still at 15th overall it was a fantastic pick at the time and continues to be a great one as well. Now I'm going to go on to number 11 and move on to another Alex. This is a guy that's dropped a little bit for me, but I still think has a lot of potential that hasn't been unlocked yet quite, in Alex Turcotte. Now with Turcotte, I feel like some of the major gripes I had against him in his draft year have continued to exist for him. The lack of consistency, the lack of explosiveness with him, those two things have kind of been a detriment to him in his pro career so far. At the same time, I still think there's a lot of potential with the awareness, with the quickness in his play, and I still think there's a lot to love for the LA Kings. He has dropped a little bit for me though compared to some other players that have just gotten ahead of him and have been more productive than he has so far. But now moving on to number 12, this is a player that I was really interested in going back to his draft year, because the thing was, back in 2019, I really did not rank goalies high whatsoever. It was almost a rule at that point before Askarov came into play that I did not want to have goalies in my first round. That was a big mistake, and even though Spencer Knight has not been fantastic this year, I still think there's a lot of potential there. Again, at number 12, I have Spencer Knight. I think he was drafted 13th overall by the Panthers back in 2019, and I still think he's looking like a good pick. Obviously, his season in the NHL this year didn't go exactly as planned, but he's been absolutely elite in the AHL since he returned there, and he's still 20 years old. He's still super young for a goaltender, and I still think the potential, the poise, the consistency can be at an elite level in the NHL. I would still take him in the top 15, and I still think he's easily the best goaltender of that draft. But now we're going to move on to number 13 and go on to a player that's kind of proved me wrong a little bit over these past couple of years, a super interesting one in Philip Tomasino of the Nashville Predators. Now, what do I mean by proving me wrong? Going back to my initial 2019 rankings, I still had him around the range he went in the early 20s, but I did think that he would be more of a project, more of a slower player to get to the NHL and really prove himself, but he's been the exact opposite. He's playing the NHL this year, has been pretty strong defensively, but the offense is surely to come for him, especially when he gets more power play opportunities. I think Tomasino will be a slam dunk top 6 forward and will be a great part and a great piece of this Preds future. But again, I really did not expect him to get this quickly to the NHL and succeed as quickly as he has, but good for him, and the talent level is definitely sky high. But now I'm going to go on to number 14. This is another player that's fluctuated a lot in my rankings, both up and down, and that is Peyton Krebs of now the Buffalo Sabres. Now, of course, he was drafted in the top 20 by the Vegas Golden Knights back in 2019, but I initially had Krebs in my top 10. I was super high on his talent level and maturity and overall work ethic, and that still reigns true. And of course, with the Sabres, he's had some pretty good chemistry with Alex Tuch and some other players playing decently, but there is still a lot of room to grow defensively, I think especially. But I feel like when it comes to Peyton Krebs, he'll settle in hopefully with the Sabres team, and just like with Dylan Cozens, will be a big part of that future that hopefully will be a lot better than the last 10 years for the Sabres. We'll see what happens, but with Cozens, with Krebs, with Owen in the future, there's a lot to look forward to, and hopefully the Sabres will be able to turn a corner with them around. But now getting into the last spot here at number 15, this is really almost another interesting position for me to be in, because there are a lot of players just outside this range that could also be deserving of this spot. You got Ville Heinola, you got Lassie Thompson, you got Shane Pinto, a lot of players that are around this 15 to 20 range that I think are pretty deserving of praise. But at number 15, I'm going to go to one of the players that I'm so happy to be right about, and that is Nils Hoglander of the Vancouver Canucks. Now, first things first, this season has not been too great for him, especially defensively. It's been pretty rough, especially since his finishing has not been where it needs to be. But I still think when it comes to Nils Hoglander, that rookie season was fantastic, and we'll hopefully get him back to that level soon enough. At the same time, the offense and the overall excitement level that I was seeing from him in the SHL in his draft year has translated to the NHL extremely quickly, and I'm so happy to see that. I'm pretty sure I had him 16th overall in my rankings, which was, I think, higher than anybody else, at least from what I could tell at that time, and I'm really glad that Nils Hoglander is an NHL player, and hopefully will become a consistent one for the Canucks in these next couple of decades. But that is going to be it for my top 15 2019 redraft. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys agree and disagree with. Let me know all your thoughts on my picks here. Let me know also what you guys would do in a redraft. Who would you pick where? Who would be your top 15 players? What would you do differently? Let me know all your thoughts down below. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell if you haven't. Make sure you share this video with all your friends. Get the redraft out there and click on this card for all of my hockey rankings content right in one playlist. This was a ton of fun though. Thank you so much for watching. Have a fantastic day, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.